Yes guys, welcome back to another video. Welcome to the George Benson Football Channel for some Chelsea news. We have got 5 days left of the January transfer window. Chelsea haven't signed anybody who goes straight into the first team. And I'm thinking, I don't know if this is a good thing or I don't know if this is a bad thing. And then I look at the nature of all the stories that are coming out now, and it looks as though we're trying to do business for next summer, as opposed to prioritising the business that we need to do now to ensure that we can have the best end to the season as we possibly could imagine. Before we get into anything though, I do want to ask you to subscribe to the George Benson Football Channel, and also whilst you're at it, if you could hit the like button on today's video, that always helps me out and helps YouTube push my content further to more Chelsea fans. We begin today by discussing a player who by the time this story is concluded, we're gonna have talked about Jules Kounde for an entire year on GBFC. And the thing with a lot of the players that we are currently linked with and that I'm gonna talk about in today's video, any story regarding Chelsea being linked to a decent player or a top player is very believable for the footballing journalism consumers out there, like myself, like you, and like plenty of others too. So Jules Kounde is a player though who we have seen Chelsea heavily linked with before. We tried to sign him in the summer. Sevilla didn't want to back down from their position. Luckily in Chelsea's favour, it's been an incredible season for Trevor Chalobah. And he was playing, or Trevor has been playing until he was injured, in the position that we would have expected Jules Kounde to come into, which is that right centre-back position. Obviously, we've had rotation with Azpilicueta there too, with Reece James obviously being the best wing-back at the club. So Jules Kounde, he's a young defender, French defender for Sevilla, and he's a very, very decent player. And the positive that we have now is that despite Kounde starting the season with a bit of a bad attitude towards Sevilla for not letting him go, which is a good sign because he wanted to come to Chelsea. So I'm not annoyed if he's upset with Sevilla. That doesn't bother me whatsoever. But he has then started to have, once again, a very, very good season. With the price set and Kounde wanting to leave last summer, there's definitely going to be far less resistance from Sevilla to keep Jules Kounde at the club. 46 million should be the price that Chelsea pay for Kounde next summer. It is being reported by some of the very reputable Chelsea journalists within the community, and that to me makes this one look like this could probably be a deal that we can almost guarantee will get done in the summer. And we're also linked with another centre-back who, once more, similar to that of talking about Jules Kounde, we've been linked to Nicolas Soulé so many times and for so long now, since it was very obvious that he only had a year left on his contract at Bayern. He has been offered a 10 million euro per year deal at Bayern Munich, which he's rejected. 10 million euros a year is big, big money. And you just wonder if, is it worth Chelsea spending this kind of money, even though Nicolas Soulé is a very good centre-back and it's a free signing, so it's very low risk. For 10 million a year, if he rejects that from Bayern, is he going to take something lower to come to Chelsea? Probably not, unless he's desperate for a new challenge. But Nicolas Soulé, he's one of those players where I think he's a very good player, but I don't necessarily think he's better than a lot of the current centre-backs we have at the club. Thiago Silva, no. Rudiger, no. I'll go as far as to say Christensen, probably not. And I really like Trev. And then you got Jules Kounde coming in as well, and you just wonder what Soulé's role would be if he were to come in. And I really question and hope that it isn't going to be at the detriment to Trevor Chalobah continuing to excel in the Chelsea first team, because I think he's been more than good enough. He deserves the shots. But the thing is, at the moment, it's looking as though we are going to lose at least two of those centre-backs this summer. Barcelona are in talks with Azpilicueta. I think if Azpi was going to be staying at Chelsea, he would have signed the deal by now. I think there can be no question about Azpilicueta's loyalty. There can be no question about just how brilliant he's been throughout his whole Chelsea career. And the geezer deserves a bloody testimonial at this football club. He's won the Champions League, captained us to glory in the biggest competition there is, won Premier League titles, won FA Cups, won everything there is almost to win as a Chelsea player. And I think that if Cesar Azpilicueta leaves, as much as we have seen performances deteriorate slightly from him, particularly this season, I would say, as quick as he was, he's not as good at getting forward and getting back as he once was. Crossing's been a bit questionable too. And as much as I don't want to sit here and bash Azpi, and I know I've just criticised him about 3 things, but Azpilicueta has been a wonderful servant for this club. And I think by now, as much as he's not made a verbal decision that he has expressed to the fans, to the club, to anybody yet, I think Azpi's on the way out. And I think Christensen could be on the way too. It's perfect for Barcelona to offer Azpilicueta as a Spaniard in his early 30s, a decent contract to come back to Spain, a very solid defender still in Barcelona's rebuild. And then Christensen is still relatively young, not young, but he's in his mid-20s. And he's performing at a top level, Andreas Christensen. So if Barcelona can sign both of these players for free, it's obviously up to the agents to negotiate with Barcelona. It's not up to Chelsea because they're going to be out of contract. So with Nicolas Soler and Jules Kounde being so heavily linked, it isn't necessarily a massive surprise because Azpi and Andreas Christensen look to be both leaving the club in the summer. And I wish them both all the best, particularly Cesar Azpilicueta. We move into the next story of the day, which is another one that is kind of like, I don't know what to think about it. I really hope it doesn't go through. Southampton are reportedly preparing a club record bid for Armando Broja. It's not a surprise. We knew we were going to see something like this during this window. Whilst Broja is still on loan at Southampton, his parents are pushing for him to stay at Southampton so he can continue to develop as a player. He's still very young. He's having a brilliant season. He's Southampton's top goal scorer this season. Not necessarily replacing the quantity of goals that Danny Ings would bring, but certainly the importance of the goals Armando Broja is scoring have been fantastic. And as such a young player, Southampton see the potential that, interestingly, Thomas Tuchel does too. It's only been a few days ago that Thomas Tuchel has been publicly praising Armando Broja. And I think it's pretty common knowledge that he would like to keep Broja at Chelsea. 25 million, again, for a player with that kind of potential, it isn't astronomical. I think he's already showing that he can compete at the highest level, and he's helping Southampton have a pretty good season. So I'm concerned about this one because I can see Chelsea accepting it, which again, when Tuchel says he wants him, Tuchel's then going to say, well, if you're going to sell him, you've got to bring me another striker in the summer. And you can see here that there's a lot of repetition about Chelsea being linked with defenders. So as much as I don't want to be that guy who brings up potential rifts between the club and Tuchel when they don't exist, it's just a hypothesis, you just wonder if Thomas Tuchel would be a little bit upset if Chelsea were to accept a bid of 25 million or any bid whatsoever from Southampton for Armando Broja. I really like Broja. I love watching him play. I think he's a multifaceted striker and I think he would do very well at Chelsea Football Club. So I hope that we do not see this one go down the route of Chelsea are like 25 mil. That could be good right now. We made a big loss last year, so 25 million looks nice for a striker who's probably not going to come in and immediately go above Lukaku. Whole other point to make for another video potentially. But Chelsea could then have a little clause in that contract that Broja signs where, just like with Tammy Abraham, we can see there's a buyback clause there. Who's doing best, Tammy or Armando Broja? And then in 4 or 5 years' time, Chelsea activate that and bring the striker back. 4 or 5 is maybe a bit too excessive, maybe 2 or 3. I hope it doesn't happen. I hope that we keep Armando Broja and he at least gets given a decent pre-season at the club. We have seen so many players that Chelsea have in our squads for pre-season, and they're never ever going to make it at Chelsea. They're never going to be considered, even when they have good pre-seasons. But Broja, he's young, he's ready, and I think he's already performing at the top level. So if we give him a pre-season, I'm sure that he can work with Tuchel, understand the system, and then can be a top player for Chelsea Football Club moving forward. The final story of the day is an incredibly exciting one, actually. It is, well, I say exciting in the sense of the player is incredible. I have watched because I've only seen YouTube videos of this guy. His name is Endrick. He's 15 years old. He's Brazilian. And he is being reported as a generational talent. A phrase that is thrown around so repetitively in football. But with this one, Chelsea are very fortunate because we've got a couple of generational talents, in my opinion, in our squad right now who are English. But the sound of a 15-year-old Brazilian being as good as he is from what I've seen of him, having Man United, Man City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern, everybody wants this kid, Endrick, 15 years of age. Now, this is how this one could work. Palmeiras are currently valuing him at £33.5 million. He's only 15 years old, and he turns 16 in July. So he can sign a pre-contractual agreement, which he can then move to that club when he turns 18. That is the rule. Player cannot leave Brazil until he's 18 years old, but he can sign a pre-contractual agreement 2 years before this date. So this summer is going to be a massive one for the signature of who we will be in July, the 16-year-old Brazilian Endrick. I am not going to be putting any footage of him on this video. I don't tend to do that here on GBFC because I'm super concerned about getting strikes on the channel. But if you do want to find out more about Endrick, do a YouTube search, watch a couple of clips of him, and you're going to really, really get excited about this kid. If there is any developments in this story in Chelsea's favour, I will, of course, update you guys here on GBFC. It is one for the long term in the future when hopefully we've got 1 million Chelsea fans on GBFC. I've got to be a bit more consistent with the uploads first, I know that. But if you're excited about this and you want to talk about any of the news stories in today's video, of course, the comments below is always where to let me know your thoughts. I'm reading them all the time, even if I'm not posting every single day. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you all tomorrow. Come on, you Blues.